Hi there. Welcome to Everyday Conversations with Everyday People. This is a series of conversations that I will be having with people from all walks of life, and we will be talking about issues that matters. Today, I'm very happy to have Catz, the president of CSJ Events Philippines, joining me in talking about rethinking in the new normal. This conversation is perfect with Catz because we are going to get to hear her story on how she rethinks and repivots herself in this pandemic. Hey Cat, good afternoon to you. How are you?
Hi, babe. Doing
Hello.
well, as can be expected.
Nice to hear
Hi.
that. Yeah, and welcome to my everyday conversation with everyday people, although you are not one of those everyday people in my books,
I'm
Cat,
like,
you know.
I'm like a country away, but I am very, very happy to be here and to be speaking with you. I do miss your joy and your energy and the things that we do.
I know, right? And Singapore miss you. And to all of you who are tuning in, no, Cat is currently in the Philippines and one of my best friend, Cat. So thank you for doing this, and coming with me on this crazy journey. So let's talk to some people, shall we? We all come out of, or is coming out. Some of us are coming out, and some of us have already been out, after the pause in the last 2 to 3 months because of the pandemic. So I believe that Philippines, you guys are still in a bit of a lockdown, and it's going to be extending a little bit longer.
We have the longest lockdown so far. We call it community quarantine. We've
Right.
just exited the really stringent one, but we're still in what they call a general community quarantine. So we can't go from cross borders.
Then you definitely are the right person for this topic that we want to address. So basically, I've been talking to different people on how we should repivot, restart, reassess, re-engineer, reimagine. But with you, I want to talk about rethinking, how we should rethink in the new normal. And with this term new normal, I'm going to jump into this conversation, Kat, because what to you is the new normal?
Sure. That's actually a very loaded question.
I know.
The new normal, and I think a lot of people may see it this way, was actually where, in my opinion, where we were really headed. It's digitization.
That's right.
Some people went ahead, had the foresight to go digital. There was a lot of startups that was happening already. But of course, the more traditional and oftentimes bigger companies are not there yet. They were trying to figure out how to digitize. And so honestly, the new normal was actually the going towards trend, just massively expedited, in my opinion.
Yes, and you are right. All over the world, right? Businesses are impacted. So it's very, very clear. So Kat, I just want you to talk a little bit about that. I'm very certain that, you being in the events business is definitely impacted, isn't it?
Definitely. I think we are one of the biggest. I won't name biggest because there are certainly other industries there that are also greatly affected. But the first things first, when this happened, and there was even an earlier calamity that happened in the Philippines that affected events. But this totally shifted everything to zilch. It is now dead. Okay. Unlike, in my opinion, and being truly affected by this, our situation in this industry is less likely to recover. Other industries have a chance to, after the lockdown, try to catch up and then do business as usual, or are possible to digitize. For events, the only way we could go is online. But here's the reality. That's where everyone is going. And so our niche, our talent suddenly is obsolete. It is very limited as to what kind of online events we are needed in.
Yeah.
And specifically also us as planners or as producers are very much affected because within our team are execution people like lights and sounds, AV,
Yeah.
right? Then we have this booth builders. And so those or them, that particular group or unit is what is very painful to think about how to move forward.
I know, right? So, Kat, for you, it's not even about rethinking; it's about thinking on your toes, and how to repivot. You're right. Earlier on, before the pandemic, there was the volcano eruption. That has already affected you, and you in crisis mode stepped into the pandemic. So it's one after another.
One
So,
after the
Kat,
other.
yeah, I would like to hear what have you done in the last couple of months to repivot and rethink to where you are today?
So, as just to give a background to people, I have a venue in a place where a volcano erupted last January, and we were already adapting and fixing and trying to pivot there. So this is my second pivot for my own personal events company,
Yeah.
and so it became one crisis after another. And when it was seeming that the events that we had planned during the year were one by one canceling, and the health threat was getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
The first things first. So the first thing was reality check. This is happening, right? Get everyone safe. So the first thing that we did in the office was to um, get everyone to get their laptops and office work files to bring back home. So the difference between Singapore and the Philippines is that here or in Manila, a lot of our teammates actually live outside of the cities,
Correct.
and our internet connection there is not not very reliable. So majority of our teammates or our staff or our employees have to work from the office. So suddenly we had to send them home. So the first was send them home, with everything that they could use to work from home. Second was to stop the bleeding. Um, Figure out, okay, now clients are canceling events. Even if I wanted to continue producing my event, I will have no visitors. So stop the bleeding and try to see what you can recover. So we try to see like the down payments that we made, what can we recover out of that, keeping in mind everyone's in the same boat. And then just to kind of see where we can stop payments. And then the third there is to try to think what now can the teammates do from their houses to still continue to be productive, right? So those were the first things that we did when we started this quarantine period. Reality check, this is what you can't do, this is what we can do. But it's interesting because the quarantine here was supposed to be for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it extended for another 2 weeks, right? It's also extending. So the difficult portion there was to try to figure out how to support your staff during this time.
That's right.
Here in the Philippines, there is very little and deleted government support. We received some support maybe on the fourth extension of the quarantine. So first it was 2 weeks. It started March 16, and then it continued to until April 15, and then extended until it was 2.5 months. And so the government support we had was possibly, and it is not for everyone, okay? This was not for everyone. Like, this is like the maximum, about 400 Singapore dollars for 2.5 months.
Wow.
And then, somewhere there. And then there were some food packs given. It depends on the local government unit, ranging from maybe 20 to 50 Singapore dollars worth, like a bit of rice, a bit of canned goods. So our teammates now who are in the provinces literally are hungry by the second month.
Oh
Okay,
dear.
so that is the situation in the Philippines. There was no work. We're not allowed to start. And so what we were faced with now is how to sustain our
Correct.
manpower.
Correct. Correct.
So luckily, luckily our office is able to see what we have and provide financial assistance. It doesn't equate to their salaries, but financial assistance every 15th to 30th. And the sad thing that you will hear, and I think this is worldwide, you know, the government suddenly allowed companies because they couldn't. There's no incentive for companies to keep your staff. No, there's no parachute for companies here. So a lot of companies took advantage of the government suddenly allowing to terminate staff or
Oh,
to make the salaries lower.
right. Right.
So
Yeah.
just so that they can survive. You know, it's this about survival already. So that was the situation here,
Oh dear.
and that's what we had to think about
I know,
when
right?
this all started.
Yeah. So, Kat, I think it's a mammoth task for you. In fact, touching on this topic is correct because you are still rethinking and you're still
Yeah,
thinking like, okay, what next? What can we do? Because
correct.
for people like yourself over there, you're talking survival, very different from people like us here, when we are talking about next step, not so much survival, but repivoting to what, So can
Correct.
I ask you, do you have plans then to go into the new normal with perhaps a digital platform, or are you already on one?
My situation is probably one of the better ones in the Philippines.
Mm,
I'm not that big that I have so many employees. And I guess I can say that similarly from companies in Singapore, I believe that there's some subsidy right now from the
correct.
government, right, for the employees. I was able to I am able to support my manpower for a few months
Mm,
with what I have in the bank or as my rotating funds. And
mm,
so it is no longer a matter of what we wanted to do when we envisioned building our companies. It is now what we can do. And
yeah.
so what I did was in trying to figure out what our teammates can do from their homes. Luckily, there were a few companies that I was working with. So I started, us in events were very people person. So I shifted my team to doing research while
Mm,
I called some companies. So I called some companies and I said, hey, do you need help in talking to people? Like now is really the startup stage.
yeah.
And so luckily there were startups that actually needed help.
Oh, good
And
for
so
you.
we became an onboarding team. So we would do the research, we would do the emails, and we would do the basic presentations online.
Mm,
Again, this is not the dream job of my office, but this now is what we're doing in order to do two things. Number one, continues to sustain our dignified livelihoods,
that's right.
because these are people who are already used to being able to spend money, right? Suddenly they've bought they have things on mortgage, and they've expanded their lifestyle, and then suddenly they had nothing. So this provides us a dignified livelihood. At the same time, it gives me breathing room because now I don't need to think about my team not eating. So
Oh,
once I settled that, I mean that was my biggest issue. Once I settled that my team have recurring salaries from something. So now I am on the real thinking stage. Now I have breathing room. Now I can really assess like, okay, where do we go from now? Because there should be an end in sight in this pandemic. There should be still a need for human touch, which is what we're thriving on. Whether it is online. So I have developed something that is potentially online
mm,
that is more than just webinars. but it will really take a selling, because again, anything that we come into, and that's what's interesting about this pandemic, it has created needs that we never thought of before. And so I had time to think about my strengths. So I do have strengths. I've created a network, and I guess my integrity has given me a sense of responsibility, and that I am trusted. And so I'm hoping that with this new offering that I can do, which is online, right, I can still provide the service I used to, which was a network, a venue for people to really engage and try to get more information and meet clients and suppliers and enterprise partners. So that's something that I'm working on right now. And if that continues, then I have something else to draw my team back, and maybe we can move forward as what we were doing before.
Good for you, Catz. I knew I had to have you on my virtual sofa to talk about things, because honestly, our message to anyone who's listening to us is that if we can do it, then so can you. There is never this thing called no hope. There is always this thing called rethinking, and therefore repivoting. So if I can ask you to just say one last thing to all our listeners, what would you tell them, in the new normal? What would you tell them?
First thing is, I'll rephrase what you said. We're all in the same flood. We
Yeah.
have different boats, some boats are bigger than the others, but every boat can survive this storm. It's just really, you making sure that you have your end in sight. You go back to basics. Like, what are you doing it for? As I told you, like, my background is actually my children's paintings. I love having this backdrop, because it reminds me, like, what really did I start my business for? It wasn't for me to be doing what I was doing, although I loved what I was doing. It was for me to support them. So keep that in mind. Go back to basics, get yourself time, or buy yourself time to really rethink what we can do, and it should fall into place.
Thank you, Catz. Thank you. That was so well said. And honestly, I wish that, a time will come very soon that I see you again. Either I see you in the Philippines or you come to Singapore. It's like a second
You have to
home
eat.
to you. You bet. I know you love that, don't you? Yeah. And so for all of you who are listening, who love what Catz has to say, and you want to connect with her, please write to us at www.elpishideout.com. And that's all the time that we have today with Catz. And so, Catz, please, you and your family stay safe, and we will talk soon. All right. Take care.
Bye.